Dr. Jazz.
Yeah.
Man, I'll just jump in. First of all, thanks for finding the time. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'll start with something playful about the new one, which came out, what, 4 days ago on Intact? And oh no, that was last year, last August.
That last August, exactly, last
But
August.
I listen to this like all the time now, and it's such an incredible record. And I wanted to
Thank
ask
you.
you know, you've been a prolific band leader. I bought the first records by you since Zoom or Big Zoom. Like that was, I really loved Philip's playing and Niels's and you know, you've done so many records as a band leader, and now this is a kind of different story with the Tentet. Like what was the story behind that one? And I mean, I've read the liner notes, but if you can explain to the listeners and audience.
Well, actually, it was a commission by a ensemble for contemporary music from Basel, Phoenix Ensemble. It's a good ensemble for contemporary music, and they asked me to write a piece for them. And then I was thinking, these guys, they played all the great pieces. They have such a huge repertoire and such a huge experience. And I know some of the players, and I know I wanted to challenge them. Because very often we as jazz musicians, we know we are hybrid musicians, like composers, improvisers, band leader, sidemen, soloists. So we as jazz musicians, we know this task to jump into different roles. So I thought maybe these guys, they can play so well their instruments. They played so many great pieces. I want to challenge them, and then this idea with the card game came into my mind, where in the moment of the performance, you don't know which role you're going to have. If you will have good cards, bad cards, well, they are not bad cards, but a little bit easier cards. And if you are a soloist, the conductor, or a shadow. So, and then I made this game and I composed it, and we had 2 performances with it, and it was such a huge success, and they liked it so much. But then I realized, okay, I would love to do it with people of my hood, where the capacity of improvising,
Yeah,
and also composing is even more established. So these guys, they can, it were brilliant premieres and 2 great performances, and they had so much fun. We all had great fun. But then I said, you know, they are not used to be conductors or composers. And so I said, okay, I would like to make my own band. And then I continue to, I find some new roles as well. And then that's how it worked. And actually, now I will do the game in November and December with students from Zurich. So it's really, I made it in an academy for contemporary music with students. It's really now, it's there, and I can do it with anybody. Fantastic. With all the different players, different instruments, different backgrounds. You can do it with rock musicians, with jazz musicians, with classical musicians. That's I'm really happy about that.
It's kind of like Butch Morris's or John Zorn's idea, or a little bit, right?
Yeah, of course, these guys, because I played both Cobra and also Conduction, and I also had the chance to play with Butch Morris twice.
Really? Oh, wow.
So, of course, the idea was influenced by those pieces, although it is more radical in this. In the sense of having less hierarchy.
Yeah, okay.
At least at the beginning of the piece. Of course, during the piece, you have a conductor and you have a soloist, and then you have to deal with bad cards, and it's like in real life, if you don't have the best cards, you still want to do the best out of it, or you know, and then so it is more radical in the sense of having less hierarchy. It's hybrid notated. It's even more precisely notated in certain moments, and in the other moments it is very, very open. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quite cool.
Yeah.
This one came out last year, right?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
have you been preparing something new on the band leading department, or?
Right now,
Yeah.
I wrote a new piece for also contemporary musicians.
Oh, wow.
It's
Okay.
funny, these guys, they are, I think it's a little bit a tendency maybe in the new music scene that they are such brilliant musicians and instrument players, and with all the new academy, where like improvising is more of a task. And I'm also teaching improvisation at the university in Zurich for classical musicians. So I think they are now hungry and to have concepts and music to play where they can use their huge vocabulary and their incredible work, how is it, the handwerk.
Skills, craft.
Skills and crafts on their instruments, to improvise not in a jazz context over changes and forms, but more like to improvise either with certain parameters fixed or open. And so they are looking for more and more composers who can like come up with ideas where they, as an interpreter, have a more important role.
Yeah, that's so important. It's funny because I did years ago, like I wrote music for a chamber orchestra, and it was really difficult, like odd meters, blah blah blah, and they played everything amazingly. But then I had open sections, right?
Yeah,
and that was like, I was like, oh, here you just improvise. For me, it's like you're a jazz musician, like free improv.
Yeah.
What do you mean free improv? What?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, based on the motives, kind of make stuff up.
Yeah.
It didn't work, so I had to write out, like certain lines and motives, and like, okay, now you play with it. And even that was still like, they're not used to this. They can read the heaviest shit in the world, but
but I think this changed now. I think this has changed now in the last 5 to 10 years at least. And
the new
so
generation,
and for me as well, I was always playing from the very open free music up to the more very complex music. I was always in the whole field busy, and it still interests me, like to combine those different ways of making music. Yeah.
How is Barry Guy important for you in this case? Like you've been part of the Blue Shroud band for quite a long time also, and it's one of the best larger bands or orchestras around improvising, and also conducted in a sense. Like, what's your story with Barry? I know you played like years ago with Jacques Demier already, early 2000s, and started, but how did your story with Barry begin and playing with him?
We both like spaghetti vongole, and he will come to dinner tomorrow.
Say hi, please, to Barry, by the way. We're supposed to play together for some time already, but we never make it.
No. I will see him tomorrow. No, we are very, very close friends. And actually, he is for me, one of the biggest influence and masters, because he's one of those musicians who can have the role, like for me as a drummer. He is a bass player. He's used to be like very in the service of the music, like in ancient music or like in jazz, and then he is like an incredible improviser, a composer, a band leader. And for me, he was always sort of a role model of to have all these different hats on as a musician, and also I learned from him how all those different hats and those different roles can really profit from each other. That as a composer, you have another sense of composing because you are an improviser, and an improviser who does a lot of hard working on a table and writing music has another inner ear and also a sense of drama, maybe, because you are a composer and you take care a lot about dramaturgy, about you know, all the density, etc., etc. And then this combination of like being capable to play music written by another composer needs a lot of preparation, a lot of like just working your instrument, and then also, and the next moment you just play your own music without any boundaries, and then he has this, and then another thing is what I really learned from Barry. He's sort of like a, how can you say, he's not pretentious at all. He has a huge, just like an English working class hero, you know. He's a hard worker, and he never complains, and we know we have so many possibilities to complain about something in our heavy profession, but he's just like, and you know, that's why I'm really, he's a big role model for me, and yeah, very, very, very cool. And so I'm very lucky to be his principal drummer now for all his projects. We have the trio with Maya, with his wife. We have the Blue Shroud Band. I'm also playing in the London Jazz Composers Orchestra.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, we just made a fantastic new album on Not 2 for the 50th anniversary of
really?
the.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Last year it came out. It was just before the pandemic, and yeah, the second album with Blue Shroud, and yeah, there I play in a trio with him and Jordina Milla in next March. So things are just developing, and I'm really happy to be on his side.
Yeah, considering, you know, the drummers he played with, like all the, you know, from Paul Litton to all the improvisers, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
that you
Tony
can
Oxley.
Yeah,
back to the.
yeah, quite incredible.
Yeah.
How did you get excited? Like, I guess we're talking about mid 80s or late 80s, mid 80s, early 80s, I don't know, for jazz and improvised music. Like, did you have a moment? I know you had a strong connection with Pierre Favre, and but like, how did you enter this world where you're now?
That's interesting. Very good question. I was not thinking too much about it, and maybe it has to do with one of my teachers at the college when I was 16 years old. I was already playing the drums, of course, and I was playing in the big band. I had a rock band, but then at our college there was an important flute player, and he had an avant-garde music workshop. And I was playing there, and I learned a lot about like Cornelius Cardew, conceptual music, and then at the same time, these guys like Elliot Sharp from Knitting Factory, and in the mid 80s, and I was absolutely into Frank Zappa's music, etc. And then the Taktlos Festival in Zurich was a big influence for me, because in the mid 80s they started to bring really the hardest and the most interesting and the really interesting musicians to Zurich. And thanks to Taktlos Festival, and also to the festival Willisau, because at that time I was always listening to Pierre, and Pierre was playing a lot in Willisau. So as a very young musician, I went with my backpack to Willisau, or I went to Zurich to listen to Taktlos, and this opened up a completely new world for me as a drummer, because at that time I was playing in rock bands, but I wanted to develop I was looking for more timbre in the drum set. And I didn't find the timbre quality in jazz and rock or fusion. That was just bass drum, snare, hi-hat, and cymbals. Although now I play in certain bands bass drum, snare, hi-hat, cymbal. I like to do that again. But at that time, as a young musician, I was much more into colors and timbre. And in the improvised music and in the composed music, people took drummers were much more taking care of the aspect of timbre and fanfare. And so that's why, just because I was interested in polyrhythms and complex rhythms and fast playing, I was influenced a lot about like Terry Bozzio, Tony Williams, Jack DeJohnette. These guys, they also had colors.
Yeah.
But but not like in the contemporary music or in the improvised music. So that interest, and also the chance to have Tactiles Festival in Zurich and Willisau opened up for me the completely new world.
You mentioned Pierre also, like, how was he important for you? Because I know I have that record, Singing Drums, and I think it's one of the first records probably you did. I mean, you started the Steamboat already, obviously a little bit earlier, but still, like, how important was Pierre for you?
He was very, very important for me because I started to play the drums when I was not even 10 years old.
Oh.
And really early, and I grew up in Africa, in Cameroon, so I was surrounded with a lot of drumming, and I also got my first drum when I was 6 years old. Then, but in Switzerland, I had to learn first piano and flute, etc. But then I had a drum by a neighbor, and my father gave me a ticket to a solo concert of Pierre when I was 11 years old.
Oh, wow, okay.
And when I was 11, I listened to Pierre's solo for the first time when I was 11 years old. And then not even 8 or 9 years later, I was having lessons with him. And another 4 years, I think I was 25 years old when I started to play in his band. And so he was a really important teacher for me, or I still name him my master. I just saw him 10 days ago at the funeral of Irene Schweitzer. We went together to Irene's celebration. She died in the end of July. So I have regularly contact with Pierre still, and I still call him my maestro.
Sure. Yeah, he's one of the greats of Swiss improvised music, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And he did a lot for the emancipation of our instrument. He influenced so many drummers in the sense of another way of thinking the instrument and playing the instrument more in a melodic way and not only in a rhythmic way. So, but if you can play rhythms, but you always work a lot with colors, and that's what I learned from him a lot. And also, what I learned a lot of him is like that you can sound as a soloist like an orchestra, without putting a loop machine or so. We have the capacity to. I have my left foot, I have my right foot, left. I can work with like accompaniment in the pedals, and having here a steady rhythm, and here I can make a melodic solo. So the independence and this multi layers in playing is I learned a lot from him. Yeah. When did you then start leading bands? Because you were playing with Pierre, and I mentioned Zoom before. How did Zoom happen? This was quite a mainstay, I think, for you since the mid-90s. For quite a long time, you did bigger versions and smaller, but originally it was a trio, right?
Yeah, originally I started a trio 1999. Also because by then I was very much engaged in so many bands as a sideman or in collectives. I was very much interested in I played with so many musicians as a drummer or in collective like Steamboat Switzerland. And Steamboat Switzerland is still existing.
Yeah, I saw you're touring in October, right?
Yes, and the guys came here to my house yesterday, and we had a nice chat, and we do some opera, a premiere next year.
Incredible.
Yeah, the band exists now since 30 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And we had like years with not too much and other years with a lot of concerts, but we still continue because it's sort of a magic formula, and we go very well together. We go really well together. No, and then to have the role of a bandleader or a composer was more of a that's why I call it Zoom, is to have. I was a little bit lost at a certain moment, in a more let's say in an aesthetic sense. I was playing in free music bands. I was playing world music. I was playing some Afro beat. I was playing composed music by composers. And then I was like, okay, and where is your own voice? I was a little bit lost, sort of like in this huge range of. On this one side is Pierre Favre, on the other side is Steamboat Switzerland. Here's more like entertaining aspects of playing with Erika Stucki and others. Moments where more radical free music. So I said I would like to have a focus, and that's why I made this band Zoom, to zoom in and to also be responsible for the aesthetic and the language of a band. And so I started to compose, and the beginning was really sort of easy. But then I went more and more into it, and we ended up with 7 different CDs.
I love those.
I must say that was a really interesting process for me, where I think I had the chance to form my own language, even more radical, in the sense of, okay, I have to take care for the concept, for with whom I want to play what music. And that was a very, very hard and very nice and good school for me.
How did you compose? How did you start composing? Like on piano, or usually even now if you compose?
That's a good question. The most of the pieces started with well, actually I had like 2 ways, and I still do it. Sometimes I compose for myself like little etude for the drums, where I say, okay, I'm interested in like polyrhythms 5 to 7, or like I would like to write a piece with a rhythm of 11 fourth with sort of like a accelerando within, or I would like to have a rhythm with 4 different meters. So I composed like little etude, and I was practicing those etudes. And then I was like, teig for for a bread. You work it, and then I'm very often when I practice, I'm singing. And so I had a little recorder at that time. It was before the mobile phone. And very often when I was practicing those etudes, I had some bass lines, and then I was recording the bass lines, and then I was transcribing them. And then I had like a pile of like raw material. And then when I had like 4 or 5 different basic materials, I went on the table and I made a piece out of it. So most of the pieces were sort of like a combination of axiom and improvisation.
Yeah, because rhythmically they are quite complex. Yeah, all
yes,
this Zoom stuff. Yeah, it's really
So the rhythm complexity comes from the pure interest to write some etude for me, because not to play any etudes by other musicians, but just think, okay, what am I interested in, what type of rhythms I'm looking for, and then I started to play those etudes, and with the etude I tried to make music, and that's very often pieces started like this. But then I also had like influences by serialistic composers. There's a lot of pieces with 12-tone, interesting is the things with harmonics, because I'm really bad in harmony in theory. So when I wrote for Niels and Philip, I made like 3 or 4 voices singing, and even with I would never pass any composing class because there were many faults in like a counterpoint. So, no, you cannot do this. So I said, yeah, of course, but it sounds great.
Of course.
It sounds great. So, and then I gave the music to Niels and Philip, and they were immediately sort of like analyzing, and sometimes they were adding
writing
the chords, the chord chiffrierung, because I said, you guys, you know better how to do this. So I came with like 3 or 4 lines.
And then you get harmony and voicings, and everything.
Yeah, and then I said, how would you just theoretically? I had not enough knowledge, but for them it was so cool, and they also said like they were analyzing which chord or which they would put on top of this progression, and they said also, especially also Niels and Philip both said, wow, you force us to play against our automatisms. Because very often progressions, they have a certain thing, and now the way you compose is completely different. It forces us.
Interesting. Yeah. It's like when I listen to that trio, you know, I listened a lot also to Jim Black's Dave Douglas, Jim Black, and Brad Shepik. But it's so much different.
Tiny Bell
trio. Yeah, but
I love it.
Yeah, you went even further in complexity. I think, you know, your tunes were really like, damn, what's happening there? I love that band. Was a nice band. Beautiful stuff. Yeah. You mentioned you also being you know so broad, and how did you start playing with Luciano Biondini and Michel Godard? I mean with Michel, I guess you met him through Pierre, but what's your story with that trio? It's a lovely trio, by the way, and still going, right?
It's still going, and we just decided to make a new record next year for Intact. So, well, it will come out in 2026 maybe. It's actually many good things in life, they happen because of an accident, and or through a sort of like a Schicksalsschlag, something. It was not Michel's and not Luciano's and not my idea to play together in this particular trio, but they had another trio, and which didn't work anymore because one of the musicians was really breaking up with the agency of that trio, and they had a very important concert fixed already at the Bachtage Leipzig. And so they had to find a solution. And because Michel knew me from the band with Pierre, and this agency knew me also because I played in other bands represented. So the agent actually thought, well, could maybe Lucas jump in because he can read any music, and we have to save this gig because they just split up like 2 weeks before.
Oh, shit. Okay.
With this band. And then I jumped in and I played this concert, and it was fantastic. We went really well together, and this was more than 14, 15 years ago. And since then, actually, it's because someone else left the band. I jumped in short time, and it became like a working band.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's a fun trio. I mean, I love Luciano. Luciano is so good. Michel obviously also, but Luciano is so underrated. I think he's such a great player. Beautiful musician. Lucas, you mentioned before also, you know, that the downtown scene was brought to partially also Taklos Festival, and you played with, you did a record with Elliot Sharp and Melvin Gibbs as well, and how did that story with those two guys happen, and connecting with US musicians? Did you also had any aspirations ever to go to New York to play there, or to stay there? Or
yeah, that's a very good question, because many musicians in my age, when we were young and wild, well, I hope I'm still young and wild, but a lot of them, they went before their 30s to New York. But I started to have a family really young. I became father when I was 27 years old, and we had 3 kids. And actually, I had this fantastic work with Pierre. And I said, I don't have to flight, or how do you say, flüchten. I don't have to run away. I don't have to escape from Zurich and from this, because all the cool musicians, which were so influenced, I'm so much influenced, they came at least once a year
All the gigs
Zurich.
were in Europe, yeah. Anyway,
In Europe,
still
a lot
are.
of it. So why should I go? I have my family. I have my great work. I have my working bands here. Why should I? And then I was 5 years. I was running Unit Records. I was sort of
really. I didn't know
yeah.
that.
I was chief secretary of Unit Records from 1994 to 1999. I think.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. That was an important time for me also to learn how the music market works and how to promote things. And I also learned a lot about how our music needs solidarity between the musicians. It's you cannot only look for your own little thing. You have to be engaged and to invest in your scene and to create a scene.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a scene, you don't have like a feedback or like a following. And so with Unit Records, I learned a lot about that also, like what it means to be engaged in cultural politics. And I still am doing this type of work also for Intact Records. And that's why I was not escaping from Zurich. I was staying there, and I was bringing a lot of people to Zurich also from outside. I was organizing concerts, and that's why I also invited Niels into my band. At that time, he was playing.
He was there.
He was living in Cologne, and so I could listen to all the great guys at least once in a year in Zurich live, and I went there, and then Intact had this great month at John Zorn's Stone in New York when Zorn had this the club Stone, and so Intact had a whole month, and we were about like 10 musicians from Switzerland who went over to do some collaborations and to play with your own bands. And I remember I played a trio with Angelica Sanchez and Tim Byrne.
Oh wow, beautiful.
Yeah, that was very, really good. Yeah, we also played in this combination the year later in Zurich. And then we had the trio with Melvin and Elliot, where we played at Willisau Festival. And so that was the idea to continue. And then I played with Fred Frith in duo. I was sort of one of the Intact musicians who was for 1 week in New York, and I had the chance to play 3 times in different combinations. So yeah. And because I was also in Intact Records with Sylvie Courvoisier, that was actually my first record, the duo with Sylvie.
Oh yeah, exactly. That 98,
even before Signatories. Yeah. Well, you are very well informed.
I have so many records, man. I have too many records. So it's like.
But you still can remember the year. Wow, that's great.
I kind of I listen to you these days, just like just to get in the mood. Play with my daughter and put on a CD, and then she's listening to this weird music. Like what?
Yeah. Great, fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow, you have a good memory. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it's lovely to see that you have Intact has become also, since we mentioned, it's such a strong label in Europe and for improvised music, and that you're still with the label and doing it, and that's beautiful. I love basically all the records that come from that label. It's beautiful.
No, it's a really, really important work what they do there. And I was for many years with Irene Schweitzer. We were the 2 sort of like musicians in the board. We were representing the musicians in the board, because Intact is also an association. It's sort of like belongs to the musicians. It's it's a non-profit organization, and it's tough work because Switzerland is such a high cost country. But we produce everything in Switzerland. We have like but it's expensive, and so that's for the market for this music a little bit difficult. But they do hard work, and they do it really well.
Yeah. No, now it's terrible. The business. I mean,
Yeah.
You said you started, introduce yourself in the business through unit records mid-90s. It was way different than now. Now it's like sometimes I release a record and I'm like, shit, man, is it even worth it? But of course it is, because you document what you do, right?
Yeah.
But just it's funny. I'm always puzzled by what an album is nowadays. That's always I'm wondering. Like, what's the
That's a
purpose
good
of
question.
it? It's like
Also the way people listen to music with playlists. A
Yeah.
playlist is imagine you would, if you would only read books
Yeah.
with
The chapters. Exactly.
from different books.
Yeah. Yeah. Bizarre.
Where's the story? Where is the big breathing? Where is the drama?
Yeah.
It's and we took so much care about how you don't put the catchy number at the beginning. You thought like, okay, we have a listener, he will put his record or the CD, and then he will have like 45 minutes time or 60 minutes and go into it, and we take him on a journey.
Exactly. It's a journey, yeah. Should be. I mean,
should be.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Bizarre. Not to take too much of your time so that you can prepare the pasta vongole for tomorrow, but
no, I will that do à la minute when they are there.
Of course. But what's still on the schedule for you for this year? I mean, you mentioned you're gonna record a new album with Luciano and Michel, but what in the upcoming months? Do you have some tours coming up or projects?
I have I have a trio with my two sons.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, both musicians. Yeah, Felix is a great trumpet player and DJ, and my second son Gaudens is a really talented modular synth.
Wow, okay.
Player and electronic music producer. Both are working in the underground scene of Zurich nightlife. So sometimes I have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to listen a set by one of my kids turning upside down the whole, like a bunch of dancing, because Switzerland and Zurich in especially is a great mecca for electronic music and
Really?
techno.
I didn't know that. Wow.
No. We have a huge scene for techno.
Really?
And there is stupid and less stupid electronic music. And as a drummer, I was always very critical about techno music because But now I must say there's really very interesting electronic danceable music, and I go a lot of raving. I do also raving some of myself, and I also have a trio with my kids with two sons where we do a combination of electronic music, improvising, and danceable beats, and but not like 60 minutes in one tempo. We have a big variety of beats, and so we have several concerts now in autumn with the trio. It's called 60 Degrees Alliance, and I'm looking forward to that. Then I have another week in Krakow, Poland, with Barry Guy and the Blue Shroud Ensemble, where we practice a new piece and we play the two old ones. Then I'm preparing for an opera by Michael Wertmüller, our house composer for Steamboat Switzerland, where we are soloists of this opera in the Opera House of Hanover for next year. What else? Well, this seems sort of like the milestone.
That's quite a lot already.
The milestones, and then I have for next year I have a commission by the Alpentöne Festival. Oh, maybe you know that one.
Yeah, sure.
It's a really nice, and I do a new piece for Steamboat Switzerland plus two female singers, and it's a piece which is influenced by meteorological and geological extremes in the Alps, and all the different regions, they have particularly words for those phenomena which you cannot translate. And it's a work about the untranslatable sort of like phenomena. And as we musicians and we improvisers, we have things on our instruments, you as a guitar player, me as a drummer, you cannot put on a paper.
Yeah.
It's not possible. The way you play and phrase and sound, you will immediately know, it's Salamon, but it's not translatable. Or to write and to reproduce, it's also dedicated. And in the phenomena of like meteorological phenomena and geological phenomena, there's a lot of those happenings, and especially now with the climate change and the climate catastrophe, those phenomena, they get more into the focus. And so I got I have this idea to work with this untranslatable phenomena and to work with musicians who have such a strong own language, which you cannot. Dominic Bloom's way of playing and improvising is so unique.
Yeah.
So I like this combination. Yeah. So that's the focus for the next 4 or 5 months. I'm sort of like pregnant now. I know it takes a long time until the piece is like ready, but it starts now to grow.
Fantastic. Beautiful, man. Wow.
Yeah.
If you're going to be around, Lucas, drop me a line in Austria or something. I'm in Slovenia, come over.
Which city?
I'm in Maribor. You played here with Ali and Jan.
Ali Keita and Jan Brönimann.
Yeah. I think you played here like a couple of years ago. I was at that.
Yeah. I come regularly to Maribor. And I will definitely. I didn't know that you are based in Maribor.
Yeah. So drop me a line. We have a guest room here also in the vineyard, so in our house. So you can stay here, or I have drum set and we can play or whatever. So
fantastic!
If you have time,
because I remember you. I heard you twice in Uster.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, shit, that was a long time ago.
With Michel and with
Roberto Dani, was on drums,
Roberto Dani, and then also in the Hoot Cafe Hoot. I think you played with the oboe player.
Oh yeah, with Paul McCandless, exactly. I think that was it,
with Paul McCandless. But that was in duo or in trio with Paul?
It was trio. I think it was trio. Shit, that's such a long time ago already.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. So I remember back because at that time I was still living in Uster. And now I live in Zurich now, yes.
Yeah, Stefan had that. Yes, that was a lovely place up there.
It's unfortunately it's closed now.
Really?
He stopped. Yeah, he stopped doing it. Yeah.
That's a shame. He was such a nice guy. I mean, such an enthusiast.
Yeah, really good, really good.
Amazing. But yeah, fantastic. But yeah.
And you are doing some new projects, Samo?
Yeah, I'm quite. I just did a trio record with Arild Andersen on bass. And Patrice Herral. You probably know Patrice.
I know Patrice very well.
From Montpellier.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was so much fun. We had a small tour and we did a trio record. So that I mixed that now, and I have so many albums that I mastered, recorded in the past 2 years. So it's just now how to release them and where to release them, and these things are now for me like.
Yes. Do you have your own label?
Yeah, also, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's difficult.
It's difficult.
It's really difficult. Yeah, it's But
I did a couple of records now on Clean Feet, but it's just it's a beautiful label, but Pedro doesn't really send stuff out for reviews and stuff, so it's like then I rather do it on my own, and on my own label, because it's same amount of
because
work.
Clean Feet has a very good reputation.
Yeah, but they stopped sending for reviews out, so that's just digital.
Intact had a little bit the same. Intact had a little bit the same problem, but they still do physical sendouts.
Yeah, that's rare.
They still do. They do still do also for journalists, but now they start to send out more and more just the digital download with PDF of the whole information and liner notes, etc. And if a journalist really wants to have it physical, then he can get it.
Yeah. It's cheaper, I guess. It makes sense in a way.
It makes sense, but still, it's. I prefer to read a book
Oh,
and
me.
not look.
I still buy books. My wife has an e-reader, right?
Yeah.
We're in the bed, she's like on her e-reader, and I have like a
Yeah.
thick book like on me, like I like that, man. You know, the smell
me
of the
too.
book, the
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know,
no.
everything.
And it's physically there.
Yeah.
And I said, okay.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, I like
not-
the bookshelf and CD shelf,
Yeah.
you know, that's your,
Yeah.
oh shit,
Yeah.
oh, that's nice.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
But yeah. But man,
Oh, Patrice and
Patrice is amazing. Like,
yeah, big, great guy. Yeah.
such a nice guy also. And
Yeah.
Arilt also, man. Arilt is,
Yeah.
I think he's like 80 already or 79.
And they were still on tour, like healthy.
Yeah. I mean, Patrice, of course, Patrice is,
Mhm.
I think, your age. So, or
Mhm.
no, a little bit, 10 years older, 10 years older. So, but Ariel, he's still, we went into the studio and we did like first take of after the tour of one tune, and it was like, yeah, me and Patrice like, yeah, cool, let's do the next one. And Ariel's like, no, let's go listen. Okay, we go into the booth listening, and he's like, no, what? Let's do another take. I was like, what?
Okay.
You know, he's 80 and he still has that enthusiasm and power to play and to do better. And I find it amazing. It's like Barry, kind of that same love for
just this attitude of a working class.
Yeah, and amazing, you know. So but man, like I said, Lucas, if you're around, drop me a line. Let's get together.
I will.
I hope we can make some music together one day. So
thank you very much for this interest and also this really questions where I understand they're coming from a musician and not from a journalist.
Yeah, that's bad.
It's like having there's a slight difference, I must say.
It is, yeah.
You know that.
I know that. Yeah, I've done some. Yeah. But cool, man.